So, hello. hello Dublin. Hello DjancoCon Europe. My name's Sarah Boyce. I'm a Django fellow. I've been a fellow for about a year. That means I'm one of the paid contractors who helps to maintain the Django framework. I really like to play badminton. I'm in a local league, so if anyone is a competitive badminton player, we can always maybe challenge me one time. I'm British, but I'm based in Germany, so if anyone's in the Cologne region at any time, you can come to the monthly Cologne meetup, and I will probably be there. I'm not sure if you can see that picture particularly well, but I want you to try and think what this might be a picture of, just for a second. I mean, it certainly looks like... yeah, exactly, I hope so. I mean, it looks like a bunch of rubbish, but actually, these are unsolicited donations that were sent after the 2010 Haiti earthquake. And there were so many of these donations that they started to get into the way of critical relief supplies. Yeah, which is not ideal. And it's also not a unique occurrence. After almost every major natural disaster, there is then this wave of donations that come from all these well-meaning people, and it's been called the second disaster because they receive so many and they need to deal with it all. And unfortunately, 60% of these items will be waste. They don't get used, and it really varies because some of it is truly useless, like ladies' belts or winter clothing for a tropical island, or things that they really don't need, but even useful stuff or things that seem to be useful, if that's not what they're after, it still will go to waste. And I will go on to why I'm talking about that at some stage. But Django needs you. Django is a community-run project. It fundamentally doesn't work without its volunteers. It's volunteers who brought this conference today. And this is not a new message. Carlton Gibson gave a talk that your web framework needs you back in 2018. And he did it again in 2019. And I'm doing it again in 2025. It's still true that Django needs its community. It won't work without the efforts of volunteers. But usually when I say, yes, okay, Django needs its volunteers, it really needs individuals to step up and to help out. Most of the time people say, sure, I can pick up a ticket. And then they find a ticket, they work on that ticket, they create a PR. And then they literally can't go any further without the help of someone else, because nobody can get work into Django on their own. At this stage, they need someone else to review their work, to give them feedback, and to help it get over the line. As an individual, this is as far as you can go. And actually, I would say almost every volunteer action within the code contributing area of Django is probably one of two things. You're either requesting feedback or you're giving feedback. And things that are requesting feedback are like creating tickets, creating PRs, creating forum posts. Everything you do in that area, you're doing it for another person to look at it and to give their opinion, right? Or you're giving feedback, you're reviewing the PRs, you're triaging the tickets, you're responding to the forum posts. And the thing is each of those things are either requesting attention or they're giving attention. And attention is finite. We only have a limited number of people who are actually giving out attention to other people's work, essentially, and especially when those are volunteers. And you can see that there's only so much time there is to give. And the problem is all of these requests for attention, these requests for feedback, they build up. And there's a lot of waste that happens in the project as a result of this, because for those who are trying to respond to these requests, there's a feeling of overwhelm when you see that they're gathering up and you can see that there isn't enough attention to go around. But also for those who are doing the pull requests and stuff, there's a lot of frustration, a lot of feeling of wasted work, a lot of long waiting times. And yeah, not really a great experience all around. So Django needs you, but really I want you to do code review. That would really help. Oops. Because right now we have about 300 odd open PRs or pull requests. In our review queue, I checked this morning, we had 51 tickets that are waiting for a review. And it takes, on average, 319 days to get a review in the Django repository for your PR. So under a year. Woo! And you might think, okay, well, the solution here is we should just merge more stuff. We need to merge these pull requests. But Django doesn't break things. Django's, like, part of the reason that a lot of people like Django is that it's got this strong stability. It's got, and that it's not going to break on you when you go through the releases. So it's not that easy. And another thing is it's not getting easier. It's perhaps not so easy to see this picture, but year on year, we add more code to the code base. It grows pretty much every year. And so every year it gets bigger and more complicated, more feature rich, and it's harder and harder for there to be a few individuals who know it all. There's only been 2 exceptions to this rule. So back in 2012, there were a few DjancoCon Europe apps that got removed. And in 2015, there was also a Contra app that got removed. And in those cases, we did actually remove more code than we added in that year. But otherwise, continuous growth. And we're definitely soon going to have, 1 million lines of code that we're maintaining. Another issue is people don't stick around. After 1 year, we lose 98% of our contributors. So even though you might invest some time giving people feedback and they learn about the process of how to contribute effectively to Django and all this kind of stuff, they might not stick around. Some of those, it's because obviously they were waiting a long time and all that kind of stuff. But the other issue with that is Django's release cycle takes 8 months. So people will realistically start to use that new feature, that bug fix, probably in a year's time when they upgrade after that, that upgrade. And those individuals who created those features or did those bug fixes, they're not around to fix any issues that they might have implemented in those pull requests. And that puts a lot of responsibility on the people to review it and merge it, etc., that we need to make sure that it's really, really, really good. And so this is hard. This is really hard. But you can help. I feel like there's a lot of people in this room who are very capable of doing reviews that would really help our community right now. And I'm going to give you a bit of a guide on how you could perhaps approach a review. But it's not going to be the only way that you can review a pull request, so please don't take it that way. But before I go into it, I think it's important to explain a little bit of the process. So it is similar to, I would say, most processes that you work on your code, and at some point you decide it needs a review and you do something to indicate that. You might just open a pull request, or you might request a review or something. And then it will get a review, and then either you need to work on it again, or it will, it's now ready to merge, and then it gets merged, right? And that's the same in Django. Oops. But you also do some things that are perhaps a bit unique to Django's process around how you indicate that it's ready for a review and how you indicate that it needs more work. So in Django, we use track, which is a ticket system. And you will, in order to show that you want to review, you will go into track on your ticket that you're assigned to. You open your pull request, and then you also put has patch, yes, to say that you have a solution to this ticket. And then you put patch needs improvement, no, needs tests, no, needs docs, no. And once you've done that, it's now in our review queue that I mentioned before. And then when someone comes along and they decide, actually, you need to do more work to this, they will go back to that ticket after they've reviewed your pull request, and then they will put patch needs improvement, yes, needs tests, yes, or something like that. And then if actually they're approving the PR, what they would then do is approve the PR, and then they might change the triage state to ready for check-in. Which is important because in Django, we have another person, which is called a merger. So only limited people have the ability to merge code into Django. So if you're panicking, thinking, oh gosh, what if I approve it and then it gets merged and then I've implemented I've let a bug get in or something, you won't be the only person who reviews it. A merger will also check through it themselves. And if they thought there was some stuff missing, they would give that feedback, and then they would, update those ticket flags and all that kind of stuff. Or they will merge it, one or the other. Okay, so back to my quick start guide. The first step is pick a PR, right? Doesn't seem too difficult. And you can do that by going to the review queue. So the easiest way to find that, in my opinion, is you go to track, which is code.djangoproject.com. And then at the top, there are these tabs, and you can click on reports, and then that will have a bunch of links. And then you can click on the link that says patches that need review. But all it is it's a saved filter with those ticket flags I mentioned before. So has patch, yes. Needs docs, no. Needs tests, no. Needs improvement, no. And triage stage, accepted. So you can pick one of those. Another option is we also have a few pull requests that don't actually have a ticket. Those have recently got labels saying no ticket, so you can filter for them. Those are supposed to be really small changes, and if they're not really small changes, you can say perhaps this needs a ticket. So it should be things like spelling errors and stuff in the docs, or things that are considered so trivial that it's just a quick win, and you can check through those. My other advice is try and specialize in one area of Django, because if you don't, you will kind of get this whiplash where you're going to all these different areas of the code base, and you won't necessarily have the experience where your knowledge is building on top of each other in terms of what you're reviewing, because certain areas will have like the tests in a particular place, and it will have a similar style and all this kind of stuff. So if you can filter by a particular component of Django, so perhaps the admin or the ORM or forms or something, then that will give you the experience that you build on top of, your knowledge will build on top of itself, and you will do better reviews going forward. Okay, the next step is you need to pull the branch. If you think that you can do an in-depth review just looking at it on GitHub, it's just not going to work, because I like to think of it as if you were going to buy a house and in terms of we're going to merge the code, and this is quite a big deal because we're now kind of agreeing to maintain that feature potentially forever. So it's almost like we're acquiring this asset. This code is going to be a new asset that we're getting. If you're going to buy a house, you wouldn't just look at the pictures and buy it. You would probably go to the house and look around and check if the walls are actually solid and different things that you might not be able to appreciate just looking at those pictures. So definitely pull the branch. We also have a Git alias that's in our contributing docs, which will make it easier for you to do this, especially if you're doing this on a regular basis. All right, next, I would say check the tests. So there definitely should be tests if they're making any code changes. There should be a proper regression test. So if they're fixing a bug, the test should be failing before those code changes. So you can check it was actually failing before, and that with those changes it's now passing, which might not be the case. They might be testing something different. You want to check the coverage. You can also run the tests with coverage and see which lines are getting tested. You can also play around with checking if you remove some code, whether the tests still pass or whether they now fail. So check that they've covered all of the different logic paths that exist in that code. And then the next one would be to test in real life. So have a local test project or any other Django project that you have, install Django from that branch that you've pulled locally, and see whether, especially if it's a feature or especially if it's something in the admin, you can check the UI and stuff, that the padding is all right, and that also, how you feel the feature, and does it feel intuitive, and is it working when you try and break it. And then you can look at the docs. So you've done some testing. You know that it's got good coverage. You know that you feel like the code works. But like docs or it didn't happen, right? Docs are really important to Django. And I'm not a technical writer. It's difficult to do docs really well, but you can definitely do some. You are a user of the docs. If you read through it and you think that those docs, you understand what they're trying to say, it reads reasonably well. And it's consistent. So I always think it's worth taking a step back and then looking at the full page, which is also a good reason to not just look at the Git diff. So if everything was worded in a particular way, except this new function has a very different sentence structure or something, then it doesn't feel consistent on that page. And there's things like that you can give feedback on that to make it flow better in the documentation itself. And then the last bit I would say is, are you happy? And which has all of the squishy stuff. So, do you feel like the approach makes sense to you? Is there another way that you could approach this? I feel like at the end of the review, you want to get to the point where you feel you wouldn't have done it differently. Like you feel like this is the best way to solve this problem. Is it scoped well? So you might find that it's a bug in, I don't know, the MySQL code base or something, but we're changing a lot of different files that are not related to that, and perhaps that's not the best way to do it. Is it following Django's coding style? So within our contributing docs, we do have a bunch of guidelines on what our coding style is like, and you can give feedback that, okay, actually, this should be like that, or etc. Naming, I hate naming, but if you have an opinion on what would be a better name for a function, attribute, anything, then it's a really good time to add that, because once it's it's there, we will not really rename things because we'd have to deprecate, and that's a lot of work. So if you think a certain name is more appropriate, then it's really important to give that feedback. And then just general concerns. So there might be some things which you're worried about, that you feel like, okay, it would be great if we test this scenario, and perhaps you haven't tested it, but you feel like we should look into this, or there might be some things that you're just generally a little bit worried about and you want that to get looked into. So adding those in, just so the author can consider it and see if they've got responses and all that kind of stuff will really help, the process. And then you give feedback, and you add all of those comments on the pull request, and then you go to the ticket and you update those ticket flags, like I mentioned before. So those were patch needs improvement, yes. Needs docs, yes. Needs tests, yes. If you update any of those to yes, then it's no longer in the review queue, and it should be very clear to the author of the pull request what they're supposed to do next in order to re-request a review. Or you're happy, you approve it, and you put that the triage stage is ready for check-in. And once you do that, then one of the mergers will be able to see that this ticket is, in your opinion, ready, and then they will know that they can now do like a final level of review and check that they agree. So, in summary, pick a PR, pull the branch, check the tests, test in real life, check the docs, and then general happiness things. So there is also, in the documentation itself, there is a patch review or checklist or contribution checklist that has, again, a list of kind of questions for different types of contributions, and to check that certain things are done in a certain way. That's also a good thing to go through yourself. We tell it's in the advice for the author of the PR to have gone through this, but it's also good for you to go through it, because people are not very good at checking their own work, and that will definitely be able to show to you if they've, if there's stuff that's been missed. And really what I think the main theme that I want people to think about when they contribute to open source projects is to think about or reflect on your attention footprint. So I think some people are aware of their carbon footprint a little bit, but I think ideally if you can try and give as much attention as you request, then that would make such a huge difference to the project, because we certainly have a lot of people who request attention without ever giving attention back to other people. If you're a giver, that's amazing. But just to, if you were to create a pull request, and I'm not saying that I don't want pull requests, I do, to give a review to someone else's, just to share the love, would be really great. And that's the main message of this talk. So thank you very, very much. And then if you can't give your time, you can always give money. So feel free to donate to the DSF. By donating, that enables the DSF to pay people like myself to dedicate time to the project, so that we give out this attention to all the different contributors who are available. But I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Sarah. You started out by talking about some of the patterns that you've observed in people's engagement with pull requests and issues and so on. Have you seen those change over time? And do you have a sense of what causes them to change, to move in either positive or negative directions?
Ooh. I think it's interesting what motivates a person to contribute to the project. I think some people. It's really nice when some people observe a lot before they make contributions. I think this is a really nice, sustainable way because they've taken some time to appreciate how the process works and that they're kind of working with the community to make their contribution. When people are doing it for slightly more selfish reasons, that they particularly need this change or perhaps, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but like we might get a flurry before Google Summer of Code that some people just want to kind of demonstrate that they've done some stuff, or I think in those cases it's a little bit shallow, the reasons they're doing it, and it might not be so easy to work with these people. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's a really tough question.
Okay, thanks for the talk. Really cool. Question, I heard that the guys from Django CMS over there, that they are trying to mitigate the attention problem, as you stated it, with using LLMs for kind of the first initial review. Apparently, like, having not enough attention for reviews is a problem. Are you thinking in this direction as the DSF?
I wouldn't say we're currently actively thinking of this. I think it's certainly, especially if it's working well with other projects and we can see how that's working, it could be something we should investigate. And I think it's nice that it might give people like an initial thing to look into because the waiting time can be quite long. So there are some tickets in the review queue for months. We will always then need a person at some stage, so it doesn't entirely remove the problem, but yeah, it might be able to buy us a little bit more time in that in between. But I think that in my opinion, we need more reviewers is still the same. But it's certainly something we can play around with and see if it works for us or not.
Thanks, Sarah. So I've put 3 or 4 very, very small PRs into Django, and I've sometimes looked at reviewing and triaging, and it's always the same people, as you are well aware. And maybe it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy because I didn't think that I could review or triage. So can you clarify? I mean, I kind of know the answer, but there's no requirement for any status or anything like this?
No. Yeah, so anyone can triage a ticket. So, and for those who don't know, that means when a ticket is opened, it's opened in the unreviewed state. And it needs a person to either accept it or basically close it for that perhaps it's invalid or that they can't replicate it, this bug or issue or something. But anyone in the community can do that. Because also we can also see what's been changing in track, and if we disagree, we can always reopen it or put another comment and etc. So those decisions are not necessarily final. And similar with reviewing, only certain people can merge a pull request, but to give feedback on what could be improved, etc., that can be done by any member of the community, and it's not like it doesn't count, and so it will get ignored. The only thing I really appreciate if a person has kind of said what they've checked, because what I wouldn't want is for everybody to just approve every PR without really looking, just to be like, yay. So yeah, if someone's spent some time to go through that and has said like, okay, yeah, I've checked those tests, etc., then it's really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for your talk. My question is twofold. First, currently, how many full-time Django fellows there are? And the second question is, in an ideal scenario, how many full-time Django fellows do you feel it would take for you to be at ease? And to be at ease, I know it's subjective, but in order to feel that Django is okay, it's safe, it's going to be developed for years to come. And basically, this is my question. Thank you.
So we have 1.5 fellows. 1.5 only, yeah. So that is me full-time, and that's Natalia Bidart, who works part-time. I mean, I would like more. I don't know. I mean, 10 would be nice. Who knows? There is plenty more that can be done. So I think at the minute and I don't want to panic people, like it's stable. We do the important things. We prioritize. The releases are happening on time. The other thing that fellows are involved in is they're also in the security team. So whenever those reports in, those are handled. That actually also impacts the review queue itself because of our support policy. Actually, the new stuff is perhaps the least important stuff because we want to make sure the existing stuff, that we recently released is working and that, the security fixes are going out. So I think we could easily have double what we have, so 3. But the more that we have it would open up the possibilities of us doing more of the interesting things in terms of more proactively encouraging those new features in terms of like a big hitting feature for Django, or us actually doing any code for Django, because it's not that we're not allowed to do it, but it feels quite selfish to do right now because there's so many other people who want their code to be reviewed, and it just like adds another thing to the backlog. So yeah, I would love us to have if we could try and add one in a year at a time and then see what feels comfortable would be really nice. So maybe I think 4 fellows would be pleasant. Yeah.
I have one question about making it more attractive to be a reviewer, for example. Do you know of any other projects that either have like a expert reviewer program like the IPCC or anything like where you have to review something before you get to have the bragging rights of having your code inside a project? Because it seems like there are lots of carrots that you could put in front of the I got to have my code in the project thing, which might make this part more interesting. And it feels like if that's the bottleneck, then maybe that's where the conversations need to be, to say, well, let's make being a reviewer much, much more appreciated and recognized, and like, I don't know, have more bragging rights associated with it.
I do think it's a really interesting topic to go onto the motivation of it, because it's, in my opinion, it's quite a selfless thing to do, because when you're the author of the code, you get the it was your commit that did it, and it sounds better to say, oh yes, I made such and such, rather than, oh yeah, I was pretty critical in helping getting that in. So I don't know what other projects are doing, and to be honest, that's at least for me personally, I don't have enough experience of other open source projects and how they're managing things to really learn from others there. We could certainly do little things like making sure that a reviewer is a co-author of every commit, maybe, if that was appealing. It's hard to know what motivates people. So yeah, if anyone has ideas of what could be appealing, that would be good. We do have a review and triage team, or triage and review team. So there are a list of people who are contributing on a regular basis, and they then are on our website as members of that team, and they get there's maybe a benefit or two, so they have some more editing rights and track or something like this, but and at least their name is visible and stuff like that. But yeah, certainly I think motivation is an area that we could experiment with, doing different things to make it more appealing. Thank you.
As a new user of the project, it's often a lot easier to see a problem and ask, how can this be fixed? Which is going back to your demanding attention part of things. Is there anything you can suggest in terms of ways to help support people, to make them feel confident to be able to say, oh, actually, I can give my attention, I can contribute to this? Because some of the issues might be, quite deep in the code base and things that you need a bit of expertise to really feel like you can get on top of.
It's a great question, because, for example, I didn't really triage tickets or review pull requests until I was a fellow, and there's no magical training that they give you when you become a fellow that now you feel more comfortable doing it. You're just like, it's now your job, so you should start doing it. So actually, there's probably a lot of people where the only thing that gives you is it gives you the explicit permission that you should now be doing this. And I think knowing that that is something that is appreciated by the project, and you can, we have some, if you want feedback on the way that you're doing it and stuff like that, we do have a Discord chat, for example, which has like a contributing, getting started, and a contribution discussion, that might not, something like that, channels, which you can also ask some opinions from other people. There is no, we don't have any qualifications or certificates or something that we give out to, like, I don't know, maybe make you feel more comfortable. But I think, especially if you've done or you've tried to do a contribution yourself and you've had the experience of the review from the other side, then I think that makes you feel more comfortable giving the review to other people, because there are common things that people miss every time, and especially you can see who's doing their pull request for the first time, because on the pull request there's this like automatic welcome message saying like, hey, when it's their first pull request. And so especially for new individuals, you might have like some of those tips that you can go through. And even though people do read some people read the contributing guidelines, I thought I had read them when I had first contributed, and it's amazing how much you miss. So, having just another person to have gone through that, you will be able to add a lot of value, even if, you don't feel like you've got so much experience in the project.
Thank you, Sarah. I've wondered if you think it would make any difference if we made the pool of mergers wider, if we were slightly more liberal about who could click the green button to actually resolve the PR in the end, or if you think that's not the bottleneck.
I don't know. It's an interesting thought. It's possible, because I think there's an element of, I guess, similar to the whole motivation thing that got asked before, that if you feel like you've been granted that extra rights, perhaps you take that very seriously, and you then feel like you want to do that. And there's an element of like joint ownership, like the feeling that that Django is our project and that you feel responsible for the code in it and that you want it to succeed. And maybe having that green button will help you feel that. But I also don't know whether people appreciate the safety net that, they know another person's going to look at it. So I don't see why we can't open up to a few more people and see if that helps. And then if not, then we can try something else.
With the uprise of AI-generated content, which is already somewhat coming to Django as well in pull request descriptions, which to me at least personally seems an insult on my time when reviewing something, because there is like 3 pages of pull request description for 3 lines of code change. How do you propose to handle those, shut them down early or encourage to put more time into it, or what to do about it and how to weed them out?
Yeah, great question. Getting good questions. It's definitely a problem. I think we also got some Google Summer of Code projects proposals recently that seemed very AI generated. I imagine a number of the people organizing a conference perhaps got that with their talk proposals and things. I don't know. I think there are, we have some challenges in terms of moderating the behavior of people on pull requests, because I think there are a number of things that people do that are detrimental, like random people commenting, what's the progress on this and stuff like that, which I hate. And I think there might be, we could certainly have template responses to certain actions to say that this is going against whether this is a code of conduct or something, that, that they should respect the volunteer time of this community, and that this behavior is not appreciated. I think it's a bit tough sometimes because you kind of want to then encourage the right behavior. So I don't know, but the thing with Django right now is there's so many pull requests that you could just choose not to review that one, and you review other ones which you feel are slightly more in the direction that you would like to see, or the behavior that you'd like to see. And in a way, it semi-encourages those people to continue to contribute rather than some individuals that are perhaps not doing it so well. But I don't know. Maybe in future we can detect these things and have an automatic message, or who knows? I don't know.
I think it's fair to say that Django Not Space has been a big success in enabling code contributions over the past few years. Do you think there's a space for Django Not Space or a similar project to tackle the review side of things?
I would love Django Not Space to do a review-orientated one, which just takes some people who want to either improve their current reviews or to get started into reviewing pull requests, because it's like a slightly different skill and it's also intimidating. And I think I would also appreciate seeing certain individuals I know when they review a PR to try and get an insight on how they think. So yeah, I definitely think it would be something worth doing. The main thing is I don't know whether it's going to be horribly unpopular. That perhaps only 2 people want to do this or something, whereas we get the demand for getting some support to get a contribution to Django is quite high. But I don't see why we can't trial it and see whether actually we've got all of these conference members who want to do that. So yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Hi, thank you. I'm wondering if you have any advice if anyone took up this, take a review and started looking at a pull request and maybe came to the conclusion that this is at the wrong level. Like it should be fixed at a different layer. You talked about the MySQL thing. Like I have a feeling I might be like, oh, I'm just going to pretend I didn't look at it. I don't want to. I don't want to open a can of worms and kind of like squash someone who's trying to be helpful. Do you have any advice on how to handle that kind of thing? And related to that, I'm curious if you have any. Maybe you could say anything about how many pull requests ultimately get merged versus. I don't know what the process is for closing something that it takes the wrong approach, stuff like that. Do you have any feedback on how that works?
Okay, so in terms of giving feedback on, please do give that feedback. I guess, yeah, because it really helps other people also who will approach it. It's interesting with some tickets because they have like some are open for years, so it might not be that individual who eventually finishes that ticket, but because you can see that all the previous pull requests that were associated with that ticket, having that history of what people have tried and then what someone else suggested, and it's kind of it's a marathon, not a sprint, and it helps us eventually get to the solution that we want. I think maybe the feedback that you could give, if in that case, because this is a logic change, it should have some tests, and perhaps those tests are good or appropriate, etc. That there might be some positive things within the pull request that you can say that, like, oh, okay, I like this. I checked it's a regression test. It definitely passes. I can see that this would fix the issue, but I have this and this concern, and we just want to tweak these things. And especially if you had an idea of what you think is more appropriate, I think people are really, in my experience, people are really open to that kind of feedback, and it gives them something to look into. Yeah. Oh, and you asked something else. Or the number that get merged or something. Okay, so we would only close a pull request ourselves if it was spam, for example. We sometimes get pull requests for. There's a tutorial, contribution tutorial things, and they're not supposed to create pull requests, but sometimes they do. And then we also close pull requests which were given a review, and they're supposed to do some things. Or they said they're going to do some things, and it's been some months, and there's been no, or someone asked, are you still working on this after those months? And it's another month, and they haven't done something. In that case, we might also close it because it helps other people know that it's available to be picked up. But otherwise, we wouldn't. We do have no plans of just going, okay, let's do a clean slate or something like this, or we have some kind of automated closing mechanism. In terms of the ratio that gets merged versus not, I haven't checked. We do merge stuff pretty regularly. It's almost every day that something will get merged. But it's the biggest bottleneck of the project. There's only 3-4 people who have merge rights, and and then the number of stuff that gets through. So I don't know what the ratio is, but not super high.
Yeah, thank you also from me. When you explained the process of opening a merge request, getting it reviewed, setting the labels on track and so on, and with frequent discussions with replacing track or all this, do you feel or do you think there would be value in improving that interface between GitHub's pull request and tracks issues by, I don't know, maybe adding the labels in GitHub and then they get automatically set in track. I don't know if that's even possible, but like something like that.
So we're getting there's certainly some things we can try. So we now have like a very basic read-only API for track. We could make it right. I definitely think we should have clear logic of where it should be updated. I don't know if adding the labels, I'm not sure if I'd add every single label because it would be a bit intense, but we could have a label that's just like letting them know it's in the queue or it's not. And then that could be like a quicker way from GitHub that someone could filter for that. I think that's feasible. And then in a way, I think that's kind of what the experiment with this no ticket label is, because it kind of lets them know that they might think there's a ticket, but because of their formatting of their PR title, that ticket isn't linked. This is the idea. I don't know if people put two and two together. But then hopefully they know that, okay, that something's not quite right here because I have a ticket or something. So hopefully we could have something that says that it's in the review queue. And then if they don't have that label, they know that they haven't updated the flags correctly or something. It's possible. Ideally, I don't know if it's just a education thing or because I do like that it's more. I like that it's a human that's triggering it, that you're saying, actually, I feel like I've done everything and that I want to review. And I like that you're doing it without requesting a specific person to re-review it, because it's for the whole community and it's not necessary to Simon or somebody to say, please review my PR again. So yeah, but I'm definitely open to some ideas of how we could perhaps make the integration a little bit more sophisticated to make people aware of the process better and give more ways that we can encourage people.
Thanks for this. I appreciated how you described the role of code review as active, fundamentally. Get your hands in the clay, delete some code, do the test still pass, things like that. The reason I mention this is because you've described becoming more knowledgeable, developing an area of expertise, builds confidence, and for people who learn by doing, they might think, I need to contribute first to build the confidence to be a reviewer. So that occurred to me, you've given people a way to sort of flip that script, that I can start contributing by reviewing. And I was curious if you have any other advice to people for whom that might be the blocker to getting involved like this because they feel like they learn by doing. Anything else that you've noticed sort of greases the wheels of these kinds of first-time code reviewers, tips for first-time code reviewers in that way? Yeah, lovely summary. You could have done the presentation. So I do think also having done a contribution yourself I do think that's also another angle that you can get that kind of experience to also see it from the other side. I think also you can observe other reviews. So you can look at the PRs that did get merged, for example, and filter for them and look at a couple of those. You might see that some of them are done by a couple of different people and see how they approach it. In terms of the getting started and feeling that experience, I do think using the contributors checklist or the kind of steps that I said, especially around, just check the tests, check the docs, etc., to do it in an almost systematic way so that you feel like you know where to start to look at it will give you some confidence, because there will be people who didn't write, they haven't updated the docs, for example. There will be some pull requests which have quite obvious, well, not obvious, but like there are things that are definitely missing here.
and giving that feedback, saying, okay, actually this isn't ready because you still need to do this thing and this thing and this thing, is still helpful. And I do think, as I mentioned before, it's more likely to happen with certain people who are new to contributing to Django because they don't know the process so well. So it might be more challenging if you watch the project for a while, there'll be certain names that perhaps pop up again and again. And certain of the more experienced contributors, it might be a little bit harder to spot certain things because they've covered the basics. So it is really some of the people who are more new in the community that perhaps are missing some stuff that's also available in the contributing checklist. And you can link to the checklist and say, you can have all those nice links and say, as per blah, 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 you still need to do this and this. And I think that's also gives you a way to build some confidence. But yeah, especially if you want to do this long term, I do think having some, choosing an area that you want to specialize in, maybe doing a ticket in that area, but also looking at the other PRs for that area, and looking at, and the history is really nice. So going through, the previous pull requests that got reviewed or closed or whatever in that area will also give you some experience on that and stuff. So, yeah.